Greetings, travelers, and welcome to hell. I'll be your guide this lovely evening. Welcome in, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. I am very excited for today's lesson. I hope everyone is ready. I hope everyone has polished their brains and has put on their thinking caps. You all have thinking caps, right? You remember to bring them. Because I only have my own. I don't have any more to give you. So yeah, without further ado, let us get into the meat and potatoes. Spiders are the smartest arthropods, and jumping spiders are the smartest spiders. Okay, let's talk about this, because there's some things that went into it. Why are animals smart? Like, it kind of seemed like a silly question, but why would you need to be smart if you're like super fast or super strong or whatever? So, as it turns out, being super smart or super fast or having any weapon at all is actually more complicated than it looks. You don't just need the physical parts for it. Like if you have claws for hands, you don't just need the claws. You also need a brain or at least a nervous system that is capable of actually putting that weapon to use. Otherwise, it is just some pretty decorations. And as it turns out, spiders are not only some of the biggest arthropods, but also spiders have really complicated machinery. They use silk. They build webs. Spiders do incredible stuff. But that also means that they need incredible processing power behind what they actually do. Not to mention that spiders also have a centralized brain, which is a massive W in the arthropod world, because not all of them do. Many insects, and I think myriapods as well, so like centipedes and millipedes, they kind of don't have a central brain. And not all of them, some do, but some of them have like this thing called, I think a ganglion, where it's a collection of nerves, but it's not really that powerful. Rather than having the ability to think and plan it, whatnot, I guess it's more of an input reaction kind of thing, where they feel something and they react to it. And there's not much more. Of course, not all insects are like that. Some of them are pretty hecking smart. Mantises are also pretty hecking smart for insects, because mantises have like claws that are very fast and very precise, and you know what you need in order to have precision? You need eyes. Kind of obvious. You need eyes to see where your target is that you're gonna strike, and to have functioning eyes, you also need brains, because something needs to process the input from the eyes. And you don't just need to differentiate, is this thing bright, is this thing not bright? You need to have, they have two eyes, and they need to be able to accurately tell the position of something, and maybe even, well, they don't predict it, I think. They only just need to figure out the location, if it's within the striking range. That is a lot of calculations that for a while scientists actually weren't sure if they were smart enough to actually do. So humans have two eyes. You see something, that means you see twice, and you need to be able to tell that the thing that you're seeing in both eyes is the same object, and then estimate the distance from it. This is possible because you have two eyes, but this is also a very complicated vision problem. So going back to spiders do a lot of stuff. Like they build webs, they make traps. Some spiders will like hold, they will make a web in their hand, and then they will wait until their target is beneath them, and then they will pounce on them and like grab them with the web. That is very complicated. Like, this is not just see something tasty, stab it. Like, this is very complicated. And in nature, requirements breeds ability. If there's a need, then you either die or become able to fulfill that need, or you can't, and then you die. But spiders have not, in fact, died, so so they have fulfilled the need. They're very smart. Jumping spiders, in particular, are the smartest. I honestly don't know why. I just know that they're very smart. If I had to guess, probably something about aerial maneuvering being not easy, and they need to, like, balance themselves and stuff. But yeah, spiders are very smart. They actually have brains. Very, very much W. Another W for the spiders. I think that is it for our friend the spider. Our next fact, dun da da dun. Owls make almost no sound while flying. Owls, you know them, you love them, because they're freaking adorable, and they're also the familiar of every witch, not every, some of them have frogs and other stuff actually, but all the good witches have owls because owls are amazing, and I would keep an owl if I could. Let's talk about what the hell owls actually are. Owls are predatory birds, they're birds of prey. They are hunters, they're vicious hunters. They find something smaller than them and then they pounce and they eat it. Because they are birds, it means that they can move very quickly and they also have very sharp talons. But owls have a special ability that pretty much no other bird has. And that is, they're not just hunters, they're stealth hunters. They specialize in being very, very quiet and having very good night vision, and then during the night, when their enemy is least expected, pounce. And they do it by being silent. Their feathers have a bunch of optimizations specifically to make sure that they don't make any sound. Well, I mean, it's not any, right? Like, of course, they still make a little sound, but it's way less than other birds. One of the things that they'll do is that the front feathers, the feathers in like the front of the wings, will have this sort of like comb that allows it to break incoming air currents so that there wouldn't be, it's to fight against turbulence. Also, they have very velvety wings that can kind of absorb they are very good at absorbing the sounds and kind of nullifying them. They also do a bunch of other stuff, of which I am not knowledgeable enough to talk about everything. But just know that owls are, it's not by mistake, they just have a bunch of adaptations specifically to make sure that they're silent. And they're very good at it. So yeah, if you ever see an owl at night and it's looking at you, well, you better keep your eye on it, because if it's coming, you might not hear it. Let's go to the next one. Da-da-da-dan. Ladybugs have toxic blood, and they can shoot it out of their legs. I think legs is a little inaccurate here. I think the correct word should have been joints, because I think they shoot it out of their leg joints. Okay, let's talk about it. This is probably the most surprising fact in this week's batch. But once you learn more about it, it becomes very clear what it's about. So, toxic blood. Sounds like a bad idea, right? I mean, blood is inside of you. Maybe you shouldn't put poison inside the blood, which is inside of you, because then you'll be poisoning yourself, right? So why do they do that? Well, as it turns out, toxic blood is not very tasty. See, they use a trick that a lot of other insects use to avoid being eaten by birds. They just taste gross. Monarch's butterflies also do this. They taste gross, so if something eats them, it will want to vomit. It is, quite predictably so, a very successful strategy for staying alive. Ladybugs do in fact have toxic blood so that they wouldn't be eaten, but then how come they can shoot it out? Is that like a weapon that they use against other bugs? Well, no, because they don't need to. Ladybugs are actually ferocious hunters that are very, very strong, very big, and very tough for insects. They're actually predators that hunt insects smaller than them, and they're pretty darn good at it as well. Like, I would not piss off a ladybug if I was a bug. Do not piss off the lady. Truly words to live by. The reason why they can shoot it out is it's not in fact a weapon to use on other bugs, but it's a way to alert birds that they're not tasty. If a bird comes a little too close to it, or just anything that eats bugs comes a little too close to it, they will shoot out their toxic blood to sort of present it to the predator. And then the predator will like sniff it and go, ew, it tastes yucky. By the way, this is also why, common knowledge, if you step on a ladybug, they leave a horrible smell behind. This is why. Because it's supposed to smell terrible. It's supposed to make you not want to eat the thing that has the blood. The perfect example of don't eat me, I don't even taste good. Yeah, when they took it and they turned it into a weapon. They weaponized taste. I always thought ladybugs were cute, now they're spooky. Look at them! Look at this! Red with black spots. That's like pretty obvious aposematism? That's like pretty obvious danger signaling. Hey, I'm dangerous. I'm toxic. Don't eat me. Way more successful strategy than when plants decided to devolve being spiciness. Hey, you should know, spiciness worked, okay? Bugs don't like eating stuff like jalapeno. You know who does like eating spicy fruits though? Birds. Because birds can taste spiciness, which is why they can eat the fruits. They can eat like jalapenos and stuff when bugs can't. And that is the goal. The plant explicitly wants to be eaten by birds. It might seem a little counterintuitive, but this is because they want their seeds to get inside of the birds, and then the bird will carry it far and wide and then eventually poop it out. And that's how their seeds can get to a faraway land where hopefully they will not have any competition. It's quite a successful strategy, might I add. That's not what ladybugs want. They're not plants, they're animals. They do not want to be eaten, in fact. They're not like parasites. Let's move on to the next fact. Mimic octopuses can mimic over 15 different animals. Yes, I know I said it weird. My accent is very strange. Don't at me. Let's talk about what is probably the closest animal in the world to shape-shifting, and also the closest animal to sapiens, in my opinion. Like, if I had to bet that any other animal on Earth was sentient and sapient, I would bet on the mimic octopus 100%. Why would I do that? Why would I say such a statement like they're sapient? We've all heard that octopuses are smart. We've all heard that dolphins are smart. We've all heard that birds are smart. Why would I put my money specifically on an octopus? They don't even have bones! Okay, so the mimic octopus, true to its name, is very good at one thing, and one thing in particular. Mimicking. So the thing about the mimic octopus, you might think of it at first, you might hear like over 15 different animals and be fooled to think that it's like a Benton watch where they have like a bunch of patterns, they press the thing, and then bam, they turn into the animal that they picked in the slot. But no, that's not how that works. As far as we know, the octopuses, they're capable of changing a couple of things in their bodies. First of all, they're capable of changing color, so they can mimic the surrounding environment. They're capable of changing their luminosity as well, which means that they can shine, kind of. They can make themselves shine in specific patterns, and they use this offensively as well, not just to hide. Obviously, the most common use of mimicry is hiding, or it's for like camouflage and trying not to get eaten. But they can also be used aggressively. Some octopuses will make patterns, will make like all kind of weird patterns and shine next to fish, so they can sort of hypnotize them and make them eepy. And then bam, they catch them. Another thing that they can change is they can change their shape. Think about it. They're made out of tentacles that don't even have bones. They're way more flexible than humans. They can pretty much change their shape into whatever shape they want. If they want to look like a snake, if they want to look like a cuttlefish, if they want to look like a flat pancake. Sometimes they will bury their body in the ground and just have like one arm out, so they kind of mimic a worm. They're very creative with their use of their amazing body. Okay, but like, what do they do it for? And what are those animals that they're mimicking? Like, are they just doing it for funsies? Because if I had the ability to shapeshift, I know I'd be doing it for funsies all the time. But no, it's not just for funsies. Like I said earlier, mostly for camouflage and to not get eaten. If they see a certain fish, a certain predator, then they might turn into the predator of that predator. They might mimic the apex predator to scare away. Like they see a certain fish, and then they would shapeshift into an eel that usually hunts that fish, so they can scare him away. Sometimes they will just adapt into things that fit their environment, like they can adapt if they're in an open, if they're, say, in an open field with like no rocks, nothing to hide against, then they might turn into something like a lionfish, which is known to be very venomous and very toxic, so predators will usually avoid bothering. They just have a bunch of these forms that they can take, and the thing that is so mind-blowing about them is how they adapt to the situation. They're very clearly aware of what's going on around them. They're aware if their environment is rocky, if it's clear, if there's a lot of fish around it, if it's desolate. And they're very capable of distinguishing what they're up against. Like, they can look around and see, oh, look, it's this particular kind of fish. I remember that if I see this fish, then I should take this form against it. And we haven't seen it happen, but they can probably learn as well because of how dynamic they're and flexible and free their shape-shifting is. They can probably learn to take new forms as well. If I had to guess of how they learn the other forms, it's probably, I would imagine it's probably something that's passed down by family. Like, the mother takes the babies around and then the mother sees a certain fish, so she shapes into a certain form, and then the kid will see this and learn, oh, I should take this form. They can probably also learn to take on new forms and just like mimic something for funsies. It's really crazy, but like, they're clearly aware of what's going on around them. They know how to recognize stuff. I don't know, it's blowing my mind to think about it. Remember what I said earlier, requirements breeds abilities. The mimic octopus requirements are very, very high. Usually with mimicry, they don't even know that they're mimicking stuff. You think a plant that has a flower that's shaped like a bee and is meant to attract other bees knows that they're shaped like a bee? No, they don't. That's just how they look. It's just that they have these instinctual habits that are very similar to the instinctual habits of the animal that they're mimicking. But mimic octopus are different. They know. They're fully aware of what they're doing, and they're doing it by choice. It's consensual, baby. I love mimic octopus. What is the next fact? Let's talk about the next. Dun, da, da, da. Corvids are as smart as 5 to 7-year-old children. Why is the burb smart? I mean, look at it. It's tiny. How can so much brain be in such a tiny thing? So, first of all, let's start with why birds aren't stupid, especially the ones that fly. Flying is complicated. It took humanity like a lot of time to be able to make airplanes, and not for no reason. Flying is apparently just really, really hard. Not just for airplanes, but for birds too. It takes a lot of energy. You need a lot of very powerful muscles for it. You might have heard the diet advice that white meat is better than red meat. It's because in order to fly, your entire body needs to be built for flight. You can just have useless areas that are heavy for no reason. Heaviness is especially a problem for birds, which is why a lot of them, for example, have hollow bones, and they might have air pockets, and they also sometimes poop. Like, if you've ever seen a pigeon poop before it flies, it's doing that to reduce its weight. How can a small animal have big brain? Their brains are pretty big compared to their size. And again, that's because they need to be. Flight is not easy, but even more so, corvids are not just your typical burb. They're not just your typical flying burb. There's not really such a thing as an advanced form, but if there was, they would probably, they would be like very advanced type of burbs. So birds have gone through a couple of big adaptations that made them so successful. One of them was becoming songbirds. Songbirds are great because they sing songs and it's lovely. But also, singing songs allows you to communicate with a potential mate, make sure that they're good, that they're healthy, that they're virile. A bunch of stuff it allows you to learn. And songbirds have been pretty gosh darn successful. Most birds on Earth are songbirds. If they're not the majority, then they at least make up like a really, 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 really high percentage. Anyway, songbirds are great and they're awesome. But corvids are even more so awesome because corvids are an even better version of a songbird. They're very, very smart. They're black, which means that they're very good at being stealthy at night. So corvids have a couple of things that make them unique. One of them is that they're very big-brained. They're very big brain. They're also very good at vocalization. They can't talk like parrots. Parrots are obviously one of the best in terms of vocalizations, but corvids are also capable of speaking. Like, if you've ever seen a raven speak human words, wildest thing ever. They can do that, in fact. They are so smart that they have cultures and they have civilizations. Kind of. We know that crows and ravens and like corvids can share information between generations. So like if a lot of ravens die in a particular area, other ravens will come to investigate, and then they will tell each other, you should avoid that area. And they can tell it to their children, and then their children will tell it to their children. What the hell? They can also build tools. A very important measure in the is this intelligent, because humans build tools and humans were quite proud of the tools that they made. So they considered it something special. But birds do in fact can build tools as well. Not only can they build tools, they can build, there was a study that said that they can build a tool that allowed them to make another tool. I don't know what the specific tool is in question, but it's probably a very useful tool if you need another tool to build it. They also hold grudges. So yeah, their intelligence level is about 5 to 7-year-old children, which is insane. When I saw that statistic, I was like, there's no way they're that smart. But no, yeah, they are that smart. Like, it makes sense if you think about it. They also do some very cool stuff. Like, they can take walnuts and stuff. I don't think it's specific to corvids, but birds will take walnuts and stuff and put them on roads because they know that the cars will go over them. And then they can eat it once it's crunched. Let's move on to the next fact, because I don't know what else to say about corvids other than just like they're awesome. Pumpkin toadlets are too small to balance themselves and can't land properly. Adorable. I would want to keep one of these as a pet. If they weren't incredibly poisonous. Oh yeah, that blue coloring that they have, that is also aposematism. They are in fact extremely poisonous. They have the same poison as pufferfish. I really hope you've seen the frogs jumping, because I just cannot explain in words just how goofy they look while jumping. They can't balance themselves. It's not that they won't. They literally just straight up can't balance themselves, and so they just give up. They jump, and then they flex their muscles, and they just kind of ragdoll wherever the wind takes them. It's the funniest thing ever. Someone should take a video of them jumping and just do like the metal, like the metal pipe falling sound. And it would be like the funniest thing ever. So, why? Is it their brains? Are they stupid? Are they too stupid to jump properly? Well, I don't know. Maybe. Maybe they're a little dumb. But that's not the reason why they can't do it. The reason that we know at least why they can't do it is that they don't have the organs, the sensory organs needed for balance. So in your ears, right now, if you opened up your ears, you would find a system of tunnels with water in them. And as the water moves, because the water always moves to the bottom, because gravity is a thing, you can tell which way is down. And it allows you to balance yourself. That's how your ears balance yourself. That's how they do it. There's like water sloshing around inside. Pumpkin toadlets don't have that. They're just too small. There's not enough room. There's not enough room for like empty tunnels with liquid in them. So it's very hard to balance in space, eh? Space would do weird things to your body. It's not just this. It's all the liquids in your body that are used to having gravity on them. They kind of don't really have those organs, or at least not in a functional way. And because of that, they literally don't know which way is down after they jump. They jump and then all bets are off. So they don't have a choice but to just brace for impact. Which, to be fair, is not much. Like, you might be thinking, oh, poor frogs, they might be suffering every time they fall. Not really. Like, fall damage is not a thing for animals that small. You could take an ant, throw it off the Empire State Building, and it will probably be fine when it's down. That's because they have a lot of surface area for their size, so they feel a lot of air. They feel a lot of air resistance. Air starts behaving strangely when you're that short. Conversely, the bigger you are, the more fall damage you take. So an elephant falling from the Empire State would take way more fall damage than a human. But yeah, like ants and stuff. For bacteria, they can just float around in the air because the air is like jelly to them. That's why tiny insects, if you look at the wings, sometimes they more closely resemble hens rather than bird wings because they're not flying through the air. They're swimming like you would in a pool. They're swimming in jelly. So same thing with tiny frogs. They don't really, even when they fall, because they don't weigh that much, they don't feel much shock when they hit the ground. So it's whatever. Alright, let's get the next fact. Sunday. Stonefish have a venomous switchblade in their face. Let's break this down, because there's a lot of words in this sentence. First of all, what is a stonefish? It is this uggo fish. Look at it, right here. Peak ugliness. They're very weird. I don't know how else to describe them. They're fish that look like stones, so they can hide and then ambush their prey. But also, just for funsies, they decided to have a bunch of spines on them with extremely powerful venom. Stonefish are the most venomous fish that we know of. And also because, you know, looking like a rock and having a funny face and having a powerful jaw and stuff isn't enough of a creepy factor. They also have a switchblade right beneath their eyes. Why? Who knows? Because it's cool, I guess. It's the current fashion. And it kind of looks like a sharp mustache. One that you really do not want to touch. If you step on one of those, then there are sharp spines, which you can see in the pictures, like on the top of the picture. It's the thing that looks like a fin. Then it's gonna stab you, and then they inject you with venom. A lot of venom. A lot of venom. Like, they don't just do a little... They don't just do a little squirt. Oh no, they have like they have sacks full of venoms, and they're ready to unleash it at a moment's notice. It's like a water jet. I saw a video of someone going to the beach and like taking they took like a crock and they slammed it down on their and they slammed it down on top of them to see like what would happen. And then they filmed it with a camera, and there was so much liquid coming out of that spine. Jesus. I don't know, man. Stonefish are just kind of out there. Why do they even need to be so venomous? And what's with the obsession that fish have to spiky spines? These are spines, by the way. They're not like fingernails or anything. No, these are parts of their spine. That is all for the facts. Next week, we're going to be talking about eating healthy. So make sure to get all the junk food that you can within this week before we talk about it. Nah, I'm kidding.